Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview Oklahoma's opener with the Temple Owls. Don't forget, this is a Friday game, 6 p.m. kickoff, so you can watch the Sooners on Friday, watch the rest of the league on Saturday, other than Missouri, which I think also has a Friday opener. But in any case, Chase, interesting game between Oklahoma and Temple. Interesting is probably stretching it. Temple is completely rebuilding, as Temple often does, but it will be the inaugural game for the Sooners as a member of the Southeastern Conference.
Yes, it will be. So there'll be some excitement around that. You mentioned it's a Friday game, not many games on Friday. You get a 6 p.m. slot on ESPN, so a lot of eyes will be on the Sooners. And so it sets up for an exciting night, I think, for Oklahoma to open up the 2024 season and their SEC campaign beginning. So we'll talk about that game after we talk about BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from UFC to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker or one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here.
Chase, let's start with when Temple has the ball. It has been a tumultuous offseason for Coach Stan Drayton. A lot of guys hit the portal. A couple of guys, I think, lost to professional ball. As we are doing this in mid-August, the Owls are having a quarterback competition between three guys. The most experienced, I believe, is Rutgers transfer Evan Simon. There are a few players here. I think the strength of Temple's offense is a couple of receivers, Zay Baines and Dante Wright, both return. I've seen Dante Wright play at Colorado State. He's a really good player. Can make some things happen when the ball is in his hands. But Oklahoma's defense, I believe, is going to be one of the better ones in the league and appears to have a pretty decided edge in the matchup here, especially with the unknown of the quarterback room of the Owls.
Right. Evan Simon, you mentioned, transferred from Rutgers to Temple. But then you look at the spring, and Forrest Brock, the returner for Temple, had a really good spring, probably better than Simon. And so I think it's going to be between those two guys, and you may see both of those guys in this game against Oklahoma. Brock played some last year. Of course, they had E.J. Warner, 3,000-yard guy last year. So Brock was behind him and threw for 60 yards last year, 7 of 15. And so they're still figuring out things at quarterback. And yeah, I mean, the Oklahoma's defense is they're really good. I mean, there's names all over the field that you're going to be hearing a lot from this year. And so it's going to be, one of those games, I think, for the Oklahoma defense where you could really find out a lot about your guys and how they approach this game, what they, the numbers that they put up in this game. I'm thinking of guys like Billy Bowman, Danny Stutsman. It's set up for guys like that to have some really big games in this one. But and then you look at the rest of the offense for Temple. Running back Jaquez Smith, he returns. He had 325 yards and a touchdown last season. And then a couple of wide receivers that I think, are good pass catchers. That's Dante Wright and Zach Bain. Both of those guys are back. Wright had 39 catches for 507 yards and 4 touchdowns a season ago. Bain had 38 catches for 442 yards. And so I think those are a couple of receivers to watch for in this game. But then again, the Oklahoma defense is just so good. It's going to be really tough for a team who struggles offensively. They just averaged 21 points per game last year. Temple did offensively. So going against a defense like Oklahoma, this will be a tough match for the Owls offense.
Yeah, Oklahoma's got a couple of All-Americans in Danny Stutsman, Billy Bowman. That they've got some good corners in Gentry Williams and Woody Washington, added some kids in the portal. I think this is a game where I think that it could get out of hand early. I'm interested to see David Stone, the very highly regarded 5-star defensive end who's making his debut for the Sooners. I think that's the stuff we watch. Like if this is a game going into the fourth quarter, then we'll be surprised. But I would expect game flow to maybe lend itself to getting some guys some rest and seeing some things like that. But Oklahoma's offense, I think that's where it's more interesting. This will be our first real glimpse at Jackson Arnold, except for the bowl game last year. Of course, he was a consensus 5-star, top 10 recruit who played as a backup a year ago. They've got Gavin Sawchuk, one of the top running backs in the league, a really deep receiving core, Nick Anderson, their best returnee, Deion Burks, the Purdue transfer. And I think the other thing for Oklahoma, Chase, will just be that offensive line. Bunch of new faces there, talented faces, but it's going to be something we pointed out time and time again in the offseason. Getting these guys cohesive, used to working together on the same page. I think that's my biggest question mark about the team. It's not the talent, but it's just how long does it take for these guys to play together? So I'm looking for, did we see false starts or things like that out of the gate against Temple?
Yeah, and I think that's something to watch. And I think this is a good game for Oklahoma to have as their opener. One you can work to tune some things up. Obviously, you don't want to overlook any opponent, especially Temple. But still, this is a game you can work to tune up. Again, a lot of folks are excited to see Jackson Arnold, including myself, in this starting role. It's his team. What is he going to do with it? And I think you want to have a good first impression of a season in your first game, and I think Jackson Arnold has a chance to do that with the guys around him. You mentioned those receivers that are phenomenal. Gavin Sawchuk, I'm looking forward to seeing him running the football this year. But yeah, that offensive line you mentioned, I think is something big to watch with so many transfers, so many new faces. And so I'm excited to see what this offense could do in a game like this. I think we could possibly see their potential in a game like this. By the second half, what the score is. I mean, this is an offense that's going to score some points this season, and I think they'll be able to do that in the opener as well.
Yeah, and I think your fear as Oklahoma is the turnovers, right? Jackson Arnold, a new guy. He threw some picks in the bowl game a year ago, but this is a defense last year, and I know it's a new bunch of guys. I think Temple returns 2 starters, but they were last in the country a year ago in forcing turnovers. I think they forced 5. So I don't know if last year's any indication as to what's ahead. I mean, again, it's different cast of guys, but I don't think the outlook is particularly rosy here for Temple on that side. So that's something to watch. It just, can Temple force a couple of turnovers and maybe make it more interesting than we would think on paper?
Right, and you look at Temple's defense, they had to make some changes. They finished 124th in scoring defense. They allowed 35.7 points per game last year. So they went out, they got a 7th-year senior in Torrey Richardson, who started at UTEP a season ago, had 33 tackles. He had an interception and 8 pass breakups. Then you got quarterback Elijah Duravel, who had 40 tackles. East Carolina transfer Tyquan King. You had Eric Stewart, Torin Wright come in at linebacker. They do have Trey Thomas coming back. He had 30 tackles last year. Also, Colin Green, 19 tackles on the defensive line. And so, they've had to add a lot of new faces to this defense. Again, they were bottom of the country in a lot of categories when it comes to defense, including scoring. Like I mentioned, almost 36 points per game they allowed on average. And so they had to make some changes. So if you have to make the necessary changes against a team like Oklahoma, because they're going to score some points. And so if there weren't a lot of changes being made on this defense, this is a game that we're going to see a lot of points on the board, I think, even with Jackson Arnold, who hasn't had a lot of starts in his career. This is a game where he can come out a little bit if you want to and have himself a day against a defense like this.
Yeah, Chase, the line on this is we're doing this mid-August is, I think, in the neighborhood of 42. Computers have it a little lower than that, maybe 40 and a half. But look, Jackson Arnold's going to love the wide open spaces in the Temple defense, and I think is going to have a field day.
Yeah.
He may see the bench early in this one. Perhaps they will get Casey Thompson a little bit of time, the Florida Atlantic transfer, get him rested for the next week's game against Houston, which I think Oklahoma will also be a prohibitive favorite in that one. But, I mean, if there's a game script in which this one is close, say into the fourth quarter, then this probably is not the Oklahoma team we think it will be.
Right. And again, this is the first game, so things will happen. But I think you can learn a lot about this team in this game and what they're able to do. And I'm excited to see Oklahoma as an SEC team, how they start the season off, and really what this offense behind Jackson Arnold looks like. I think it's going to be very intriguing to watch.
Yeah. Get your pots and pans ready, Oklahoma fans. If you've ever seen Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, you get the joke. But in any case, looking forward to seeing Oklahoma as part of the SEC, and we'll get a glimpse of them on Friday night. Thank you for watching our preview here. This has been Chase Robinson and Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 16, presented by BetOnline.